Okay, well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Wellness Wednesday webinar. My name is David Chudyk, and as you know, I'm a financial advisor, and I help my clients really with their financial health. But I thought it would be cool during the month of January to get some experts and talk about some different parts of health. So, for those of us who were on week one's episode, Nicole Schrader talked about physical health. Because let's face it, if your financial health is great, but your physical health, maybe there's some healthy habits that need to be improved. I think it's really worth it to do so. Rick McDuff is an attorney. He talked about some legal health issues, some documents that we all want to have in place so that we can make sure that we're not suffering any undue legal consequences when or if we pass away or become incapacitated. And today we're going to talk about just a really, really hot topic that's been in the news, some mental health, some stress management, and relationship health issues with Michaela Tomberlin. So I'm going to pass the baton to Michaela, and she's going to talk to us about some things that are really important in a lot of our lives and oftentimes get overlooked. So, hey, Michaela, take it away.
Hey, David, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I know I was supposed to be on last week, but speaking of physical health, we came down with COVID. So I appreciate you pushing us into the next week. And I'm glad to be here today. So I'm Michaela Tomberlin. I have a master's degree in counseling, and the letters there's always lots of letters behind people's names, stands for licensed professional counselor, and the S is for supervisor, which is the highest license that we can get. And I just got that in December, actually. So I'm pleased about that. So we're going to cover relationships, stress in relationships, some quickie things you can do. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what to do when we maybe need some more professional support, like we do in all other areas of our life when we need professional financial support, professional legal support. This is the exact same thing.
Absolutely. And one thing that you and I were talking about was just maybe one of the positives of COVID and just some of the things that have happened in the last couple of years is that mental health it's become more prominent that
Yeah.
sometimes we all need a little bit of help. So I'm
Yes.
thankful for you. I'm thankful for your profession, and hopefully we can all just learn a little bit about uh proper stress management, relational health, and everything today. So I'm really, really excited.
Absolutely. That has been a fantastic outcome of such a difficult time for us during COVID is really the highlight of how important it is to be emotionally healthy, psychologically healthy, and really pay attention to all the parts of ourselves because it's very, very important. And, in terms of relationships, which is one of the things that you and I wanted to highlight today, we have to be mentally, emotionally, and psychologically healthy in order to maintain healthy relationships with those around us. It's really important. And when you asked me to do this webinar with you, one of the things that occurred to me right away is that when we talk about relationships, I think the inference was relationships with other people and our, close family and friends and acquaintances and all that. But we have relationships with everything. We have relationships with our phones. We have a relationship with our stuff, our money, our jobs, our spouses, children, our environment. So we have lots and lots and lots of relationships. And sometimes we have healthier relationships in some areas and sometimes we don't. And so this can maybe help us to just highlight some areas that aren't as healthy or that we could work on. The other thing about relationships, obviously, they change over time. So things may be great with your, cousin or your financial advisor or your whatever, and then that changes. And so we need to be able to be flexible and recognize that and regroup and have those skills and coping mechanisms to kind of drop back and figure that out again. So addressing relationships, when one of the questions you asked me in a couple of different ways is how do we know when we need help? How do we know when we need to address something in a relationship? How do we know when it needs some healing? And so an easy way to do that is looking at the challenge. What is the challenge of this relationship? What is happening that's different from before that's now uncomfortable or not working? And from here forward, I'm talking about human relationships and those of our loved ones and acquaintances and friends. But take a look at who it is, what's happening, how long has this been going on? It's easy for us to let time slip by. Gosh, I don't think I've talked to them in 6 months, and the last time I did, it wasn't great. You know, what are the problems in this relationship? What are the strengths? What resources do I have? And most importantly, when we start to examine relationships, and this even goes with stress as well, which we're going to get to shortly, is what has worked for me in the past? What has worked for this relationship in the past? And what hasn't worked? Because we don't need to reinvent the wheel each time. We can use
Mhm.
the data basically of what we already have. So I don't know if you have anything else about that before I kind of launch in.
Well, what's interesting is I went to kind of a business coach seminar one time, and the business coach that was speaking to hundreds of people said, in your business, do what works and don't do what doesn't work. And I was like, holy crap,
Whoa.
wow, but, there may be, I mean, there are things in your marriage that probably are not, if you do them, it's not going to have a positive result. And there are things that if you do those or say those, it will have a positive
Right.
result. And I think just to be mindful of what works and what
Yeah.
doesn't work is just, and mindfulness. I'm a big believer in mindfulness and money, right? I
Mindfulness.
mean, if you don't know
Yeah.
where your money's going, you're not going to be successful. If you don't know the things that maybe kind of, tick off your spouse, maybe you
Yes.
need to know those things and vice versa. So I love that.
Yes. So an easy, or maybe not as easy, but a simple exercise to do is what I like to call a concentric circle exercise. So when we're feeling like our relationships are off, or we're uncomfortable in some way, or we get that gut feeling that things aren't going well, we're frustrated. A great way to help ground us in that is to draw some concentric circles, small, medium, large. Where are our closest relationships sitting to the center, and us being the center? Is it our kids? Is it our spouse? Who is it that's in this inner circle? Who is it that's in this kind of middle circle? And who is it that is on these outer circles? And where in this whole picture are we experiencing stress or strain on the relationship? And perhaps the strain is because someone is too close to your inner circle. Maybe we've lost some boundaries, and a person who isn't as healthy or isn't as productive for us has kind of snuck into an inner circle when really they need to be maybe at a more mid-level. Or maybe it's with, I'll take the example of our kids. Maybe we've just, it's been a rough year. We've all been kind of cooped up and things, we've had a lot of tension and there's a lot of issues. And that's a person we want in our inner circle, but there's tension and strife in that relationship. So really identifying where it is that we want to start working. One of the
Okay.
things that you talk about later is action. Take action. And this is a good way to identify where we want to take action in these relationships. Um, and then once you completed this, which sometimes takes a little while, then we talk about where do we build the village? Where do we build our support? Where is it that we can seek help in making these changes that we can't make for ourselves?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that
Absolutely.
involves a therapist.
And, I'm in some business groups where, we're just kind of a group of guys that are in different industries, but we just, we help each other and we help build each other up. So I think we all have people in our lives that build us up, but we all have people in our lives that maybe they don't consciously tear us down, but they're just not who we need to be near like every day.
Right.
And,
Right.
I think that's a great mindful exercise to know who are those people or things that you shouldn't be near every day. So
Right. Move
love
those
it.
into those outer levels.
Yep.
Yeah. Self-help, people ask me about that a lot. It is a great part of the process. Whether you're seeking professional help or not, it's really a good source of information and of healing. Identify what brings you joy. Reach out to those books, to those groups sometimes. Nurture those relationships that help with that, just like what you just said. A key thing in all of this, and in our financial health, emotional health, physical health, you've got to be willing to work on yourself. You got to be willing to put in the time and work on yourself. So stress management, therapy, yoga. I'm not a big fan of yoga, but it is great. It really is. And when I'm forced to do it, I really do feel better. You already mentioned mindfulness. Mindfulness training is fantastic. Rebalancing, and of course, getting into a group or even a smaller informal group of friends that can be helpful.
What's a quick example of like mindfulness training? Like in my world, it might be just keeping track of where you're spending your money, which is pretty simple. What
Yeah.
are some mindfulness exercises in your world that would be helpful to people?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's all kinds of ways to become more mindful, but basically the idea of mindfulness is slowing down, being present in what it is that you're thinking about or what you're doing, and then utilizing different tools to slow yourself down and be focused. So it could be breathing exercises, it could be meditation, it could be prayer. There's all kinds of ways that you can increase mindfulness, slow yourself down, and be intentional, is really this the bottom line of mindfulness.
Love it. Yeah, intentionality is just so important in
Mhm.
every part of life, without
Yes.
question.
Yep. Yeah. You asked for 3 tips for better relationships. I pulled this from my own experience and from my own life, which is impossible to separate. Um, for me, and what I've watched in my clients and in my patients is when people get disconnected with themselves, with each other, with meaningful work, with the environment, that becomes problematic. They become imbalanced. So strive, when I say strive for connectedness, that means strive to be mindful and intentional with these relationships, with all of the things around us, our job, our values, our faith. Being open and honest is really, really important in relationships. And equally as important is to be fair to yourself and to others. I get a
And
lot of
that's
people.
hard, isn't it? Sometimes.
It's very
Mhm,
hard. Sometimes it's the first thing that we have to start working on. Be fair to
mhm.
yourself. I get people in here all the time. They have this terrible self talk. I'm stupid. I should have done better. I should have known better. Well, okay. That's just not really helping anything. And you would never say that to a friend. So why are you saying it to yourself? Be
Wow. Mhm.
fair. I could have done that differently. That wasn't ideal, but it's not the end of the world. That's where we want to help people work towards in terms of being fair to themselves. Last thing, and as important as the other two, be willing to invest the time, the energy, your psychological health into yourself and into your important relationships. It does take time. It just
Mhm.
does. Mhm.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
I think that is super important. And from my point of view, I mean, I've had clients that had more money than they could ever really spend, but they had some horrible relationships and it brought like inner turmoil. And so being financially healthy without having good relationship health with the people around you, it's almost like they don't matter unless they're
Right.
both in good shape, which is why, and also physical health, which we've talked about in other weeks. I mean, I think
Yes,
these
it's all
things
you
are
got.
so important, and that's why I wanted to bring these almost gifts to to the viewers, because these are areas that, like you say, be willing to invest time and energy into your relationships. Well, yeah, duh. But a lot of us just don't think about that until we're kind of told, we need to look at, what am I doing that makes my spouse mad? What am I doing that makes my spouse happy? And a lot of times it's not huge things, it's just small things. And being open, honest, and fair, I think, is ridiculously important. So I appreciate that.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we're moving on to stress that you wanted me to
Stress.
cover.
This is a stressful topic.
This is a stressful topic. You can Google stress and get 100 times this information in a blink of an eye. We all know stress is bad. We are also know that we're all under stress. Some stress is positive. Going on vacation is typically a positive stress. Heck, we we plan for it, we pay for it, we go. Most of the time we enjoy it, but it's a positive stress. Having an accomplishment like getting that LPCS that I just got, it was stressful, but it was
Mhm.
fantastic. Meeting goals can be stressful, but extremely rewarding. There's other types of stress that obviously we talk about even more, and that can be very detrimental. The COVID pandemic, no doubt about it, has increased the stress of Americans. Now, the statistic from the APA, the 2020 survey, 8 in 10 Americans say that the COVID pandemic had a significant source of stress increase on their lives. 43% of all adults suffer adverse health effects from stress. It can play a part. As we know, you know it, you wake up with a headache, you know you're stressed out, you know you didn't handle yesterday's whatever just happened in the way that
Mhm.
was healthy for you. And then, of course, that turns into long-term issues, high blood pressure, heart issues, diabetes, asthma, skin, arthritis. It affects everything. Inflammation, it increases inflammation tremendously in the body. We were just talking about this before, David, but OSHA declared that the stress is a hazard of the workplace, costing American industry more than $300 billion annually.
That is a big
It's
number.
profound. It's a
Mhm.
big number. Yes.
Mhm.
So it's just tremendous. It can be, it just, if we let it, it can be just detrimental in every part
But
of
now
our
we
life.
can't eliminate stress, right? I mean, it's going to be there.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Okay.
going to be there. It's how we manage it.
Yeah, we
Yep.
manage
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And again, we're going to have good stress and we're going to have bad stress. And, it's how we manage both of those.
Okay.
And of course, coming back to the relationship part, our stress turns out in our relationships and can be a big issue when we're trying to improve relationships or with our spouse or kids. So managing stress, if you want to jump straight to this in a relationship, I have some ideas about that, unless you have a comment before.
No, I think this is beautiful stuff because relationships can just be killed by stress,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the lives that we all lead.
Right. Most mental health professionals will give you these ideas. Rosie Shrout is a social psychology doctoral candidate who I just kind of pulled this from, but you could sit down with just about anybody and they're going to tell you these type things. Listen to each other. It's so important to be heard. You don't have to agree.
What
You've
what
had
did
a
you say?
stressful
I wasn't
day.
listening to that last thing. What did you say?
You got to listen, David.
Okay, there you go.
um, when I'm counseling with couples, that's one of the first things we do. You do not have to make your point all the time, and you don't have to agree. But listening to the other person is so powerful and can sometimes solve the whole thing right there.
But guys are fixers, right? I don't want to listen to you.
Yes,
I just want to tell you how to fix the problem so you'll stop complaining about it. And
yes,
that's, probably not the right approach, even though maybe you have good intentions.
that's right. And I work with my husbands and male partners all the time. And I love that men are typically fixers. We need that. But when it comes to communication and managing stress in a relationship, it can also often go the other direction. Yeah. Um, Ask your partner what you can do to help, and then stop, listen, don't suggest. Zip it. I tell people zip it all the time. Ask the question and zip it. Stop and let them answer. Hugging 30 seconds after work every day can help with centering ourselves. It's calming. It's a physical touch, which is always, for most people, not everybody, but for most people, that's very calming, especially with our spouse and close loved ones. Staying connected, there's that word again, staying connected during stress. Talk about your stress with your partner, and then gather your village so that you can have other people to manage stress with if you need to, colleagues. Yeah. One of the things that I challenge my couples with a lot, and I love it, I call it the 5-minute challenge. It's kind of derived from another skill that we work on in couples counseling. This is amazing. Sometimes couples decide together they're going to do this, and sometimes I assign one of the couples to do this without telling the other, and it's profound. So the 5-minute challenge is the first 5 minutes after waking, 5 minutes before your departure for the day, 5 minutes after you come home, and 5 minutes before bed. Only positive topics, only positive comments. And you might even not feel the whole 5 minutes. Blah, 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 blah. You don't have to feel it, but just be mindful of the tone and of the positivity of what you're conveying, you know? And it's really, really powerful. It's fun to watch. And I do this on my own spouse sometimes without telling him when I feel like we're getting disconnected, you know?
Being
Mhm.
married to a therapist probably has some positives, but
I bet he would argue with that.
yeah. No, that's pretty cool. You know, I once heard in a church service, the pastor, it was a relationship sermon, and they said one of the things that spouses say to each other is, that doesn't bother me, it shouldn't bother you.
Yes.
Well, and I think your second bullet point, ask your partner what you can do to help. So what I think I should do might not be what she needs, or what the other
Correct.
person in the relationship needs. So, hey, how can I help you? And then
Yes.
actually listen and do it. I think that's tremendously, and I think that is difficult
Tremendous.
for dudes because we want to fix stuff and we want to fix it our way.
A
Um,
little bit goes a long
mhm,
way. It really,
mhm,
words matter
mhm.
a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, just some other little bullet points. Be aware of stress. It's easy to sneak up on us. Oftentimes, we'll have that physical manifestation before we actually realize how stressful that was to us. Um,
You're a business owner and I
mhm,
am as well. There are times where, for a couple of weeks or a few months, just, there may be short staff or whatever issue, and you don't even
yes,
realize
that.
until like that problem is solved and you're like, wow,
Ooh,
like
yes,
I'm sleeping better that this
yes,
issue is fixed, or
yes,
I'm not
yes,
just constantly thinking about it. So yeah, I
yes.
mean, stress doesn't need to be like normal, like it's okay that I can't sleep. Well, no, it's not okay. It needs to be dealt
Right.
with.
Right.
Mhm,
Yes, and it sneaks up on us. And
mhm,
yeah, oftentimes when we're through it, like last week was, the snow and COVID, and I was sick and all of that. And it's like, ooh, okay, we made it, but that's stressful.
mhm,
Yeah, and we need to really be kind to ourselves and our
mhm.
bodies and get support when that's going on. Take action. Um, Sometimes it takes us a minute to figure out that we're in a bunch of stress, but taking action is very empowering. Develop a plan, make it measurable and attainable. Not, I'm going to fix this whole thing by 5 o'clock. That's not
Mhm,
reasonable, although it would be lovely. So break it down, and break it down as far as it needs to go in order for it to be attainable. And that's okay.
mhm,
I'm going to read this one piece of paper today and put it to the side. That's good.
mhm.
Then I'm going to go to the next thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Mhm.
Love it.
Um, from the Mayo Clinic, they emphasize regular physical activity, huge in terms of, we all know this, we all need to be active and moving. It helps with everything. It decreases cortisol, it decreases our blood pressure, heart rate. Just, it's so good for us in every way. So stay
Mhm,
moving. Relaxation techniques, we've already talked about that. Deep breathing, yoga, Tai Chi, massage. Sense of humor. A sense of humor goes such a long way when it's done tastefully, not sarcastically.
not sarcastically. So that literally just eliminated all of my jokes.
Right. Sorry, David. But keeping a sense of humor. Around here, I live on a farm, and we always say when one thing goes wrong, we can just expect two more things to go wrong, because that's just the way it goes. And just
Mhm,
keeping a sense of humor about it goes a long way. Spending time with family and friends, sometimes that can be stressful, but all of our statistics and studies tell us that really and truly it's really good for our mental health. Setting aside times for hobbies, reading books, listening to music, eating healthy when you can, do your best. Try to avoid tobacco use, caffeine, alcohol, excessive uses of those. So now we're down to who and where to get help.
mhm.
You ready for that?
Let's do it. This is really
This,
good.
yeah, we got about 5 minutes left. This can be really confusing if you're not in this field. So basically, there are three levels. There's a master's level clinician, which I am. Usually those are a licensed professional counselor or a person who's graduated from a social work program, and they're a licensed independent social worker. Clinical practice is what that stands for. So your next level is PhD, which actually isn't that far past the master's level in our field. They are generally psychologists, and they generally focus on testing. So you'll find a lot of them in schools. You might find some of them in occupational settings. They do a lot of research. They are qualified to do psychotherapy, but I don't know of any that do, because their bread and butter is in that testing and in that research. And then we've got our medical doctors, our primary care docs, especially in the upstate where we have very limited mental health resources, do a lot of psychological care. I've had them tell me that 50% of their practices and their visits are due to psychological needs. And then, of course, we have our psychiatrists, who are medical doctors who have gone on to do only prescribe psychotropic medications. And not everybody needs that, but sometimes when we've got a little bit more complicated stuff going on, we might need to engage a psychiatrist. Knowing when to seek support when you can't manage what you got going on and what you've tried, your coping mechanisms aren't working. When you're not able to go to work, you're not able to go to school, that is a key to know that you need to seek some support outside of your immediate support system. With mood, people ask me about that a lot. Humans have depressed mood, and normally we get sad or we're grieving or whatever. The time frame for a low mood is about 2 weeks, is considered normal. When you get outside of 2 weeks and you're headed towards a month, that really is a sign. Just like if you had a cold and you had terrible sinus, a week or so of that, okay, maybe 2. Beyond that, you need an antibiotic,
Right,
so
right.
it's
And is it
fine.
fair to say that obviously your mood can temporarily be affected by
Oh, yeah.
circumstances.
Absolutely, totally normal.
And that's
Yes.
just normal. You had, for lack of a better term, you had a crappy day, you're in a bad mood.
Yep.
If
Yep.
you're in a bad mood every day and have maybe perceived crappy days every day, then maybe there's something else going on.
Time to add to your village. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Reasons we pretty much covered. But the folks that I see in my practice, yes, some do have very significant long-term mental health issues, but the vast majority is stress, depression, anxiety, grief, divorce, co-parenting. This is everyday stuff that just becomes unmanageable by ourselves. And there's not a thing wrong with getting support. And I'm telling you, it will increase the time of the recovery and of the successful management of that. It will put it into overdrive.
How long is a kind of a treatment relationship with your average patient? Are you seeing them indefinitely, or maybe 1 or 2
Oh my
sessions, or?
goodness. It depends on the person, the age, the problem, their support network. Some people I get in here, I might see 3 times and they're done. I've got people who are still coming back to me who have been with me off and on since I opened in 2010.
Okay.
So it completely varies and it matters. I've got one person I'm working with right now. She would not be in therapy, except she has had grief event after grief event after grief event after grief event. It is just awful. And so she needs that support and has come back to me multiple times to get through that.
Okay.
So, um, I want to get to our books, but
Yeah.
making a referral, you just can call a counselor's office. Don't be afraid to ask for a 10-minute interview with the therapist prior to scheduling the appointment. If they won't talk to you, that may not be the right person for you. We are very busy, but we are not too busy to get on the phone with you and answer a few questions, or shouldn't be. But you come in.
And just by the very nature, like, it would be stressful to contact the therapist's office because maybe some stigmas of,
Oh yeah,
people are
yeah,
going to think I'm crazy, or there's some shame
right.
involved. Should
Yeah.
somebody be ashamed to call your office and
No,
talk to
no,
you? Mhm.
no, no. And I hope that at least with my office, we're very warm and welcoming. We want people to come in for care. We want you to get that assistance that you need. And it's our job to figure out what your goals are and help you to get there. That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's covered by insurance, just like your medical care is. I want to run through, there's 6 books really quick. These are good self-help. These are, some of them are brand new. Some of them have been around for a while. The 5 love languages. This is for an intimate partner. I love this book. It's not very big. It's easy to read. It's fantastic. It gives very specific examples on how to communicate with your partner. It's an excellent book. It is Christian based. Gary Chapman's a Christian based writer, but even if that's not part of what you use for a strength, you can read through it and it's just as applicable for anybody. Next one, New Rules of Marriage. Love this book. Again, very practical, specific advice on how to increase communication and be a better partner and get more out of your marriage. It's an excellent book. This is an oldie, and some people may laugh, but Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Excellent. It's an excellent book. It's not for everybody. When it came out, there was a bit of hoopla about, well, it's pop culture and, it doesn't relate to everybody. No, it doesn't. But for a lot of people in our country, this is really relevant as much today as when he wrote it 30 years ago. Another one of my favorites, Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert. It's hilarious. It's a journey on self-development and self-exploration. Just a great, great, great book. She's fantastically funny. Emotional Agility. This is an excellent book. Dr. Susan David, I believe this came out in 2021. 2021. Get unstuck, embrace change, and thrive and work in life. And again, very specific examples on how to make changes and improve relationships and yourself. And finally, last one, I love this book. It is excellent. Johan Hari is a journalist. It's called Lost Connections. Going back to what we've referred to this whole time about being connected, he talks about being connected to each other, to meaningful values, to meaningful work. And he just does a brilliant job of supporting this with scientific data on how important it is for us to be connected in all of these ways. So.
Yeah, no, we are social creatures, for sure. Which is a positive and also a negative, because sometimes we don't maybe necessarily know how to interact appropriately with each other. So those are awesome. I'm listening to one of these on my drive to and from work now, based on your recommendation. So that is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So we managed to do a 30-minute webinar in 32 minutes, which is literally almost a record that we've almost we're on time. So this was very very concise, and it gave some really strong just bullet points. So I would just encourage everybody, work on your relationships, be cognizant. Counseling for Life is a great organization. The contact information is here. It's in Anderson. If you're not in the Anderson area, of course, if you feel like you need to seek out help, just seek out help and get help, and don't struggle on your own.
No.
And I think that's really really about it. But I wanted to put you on the spot because my podcast, the Weekly Wealth Podcast, we talk about money, mindsets, tactics, and strategies help you to build wealth. Okay. So I would like your definition, because everybody gets asked this question. What is your definition of true wealth?
True wealth.
True wealth.
When I think of wealth, I think of richness. I think of comfort. I think of security. And for me in my life, what does that for me is my family and my friends and my children and my relationships with others. And when those are all right, I feel the best that I can feel.
Absolutely. I've probably asked 20 or 30 guests, and nobody yet has given me a dollar amount. I'll have true wealth when I have $1 million or 10 million or 5 million. Nobody said that. It's always been some version of freedom and family and love and happiness.
Mhm.
And not managing our relationships and not managing our stress can get in the way of those.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
not seeking help, not managing our money can get in the way of those. Not managing our health can get in the way of those. So I'm really thankful for your time. I'm
Sure.
thankful for
Thanks
your
for asking me. That
expertise,
was
and
fun.
this has just been really fun. So anybody in the Anderson, South Carolina